Okay.
All right, so welcome everyone to our call. We're going to spend a little time this morning looking at QuickBooks integration with D-Tools, particularly in the context of managed fields, that is fields that we manage in the BlueDog master database, how those can be leveraged for your individual companies if you choose to provide a little bit more customization for your unique needs. So with that being said, we're going to look at some queries. We're going to look at price levels, and then we'll just look at some sorting that we do on a custom field to help differentiate between what would be presumably merchandise or inventory items from inventory parts that might be non-inventory items, and also how labor factors into that. So all of that being said, on our BlueDog managed database, we manage what in D-Tools would be price level A. So if we look at price types in D-Tools, you'll see right here that unit cost is set to A, unit price is set to B. And that can be changed up here there's an option for managing price types. So D-Tools gives you however many, a dozen or more different price levels that you can set. Our managed catalog is on price level A. So we've labeled that A as BlueDog Data Services, and then a second price level is B for the client. So all these other price levels are unmanaged. You can make those your own. So if you want to track your actual cost, you can, through a set of queries and price rules, which we'll look at next, you can very quickly set a different price level from our managed level, and then manage that or edit that as you choose to. So we'll go ahead and look at this. So if you notice, all of the pricing on A has already been established. That's what we push out whenever we create a new item. If I were to change over to B, I've replicated the pricing on a few of the items, but many of these items are not currently established on price level B. So there's a way to do that using what's called a price rule very easily. So we can go into price rules, and let's just grab an item like this. Let's make it this D106 speaker. We can come into our price rules on the selected item, and you could do this for all. And what we want to do is use a function called set from. So what we want to do is we want to set cost for B from level A, and we want to set price from A to B. So the way that looks like is I've got one here where the source is unit price A, my destination is unit price for B. I can do the same thing for cost, where my unit cost from A is going to push to unit cost B. So if we apply that, I can apply this rule for unit cost, and I can do likewise for unit price. I want to just make sure I'm on the right one. Yep, I want A to B, so I'll apply that rule. Okay, and when I close that, now if we open this item up, you'll see that in fact my level B price is the same as my level A price. And you can do that in mass. I could grab all of these items if I chose to and take my price rule to all or selected and quickly replicate. Now, when we push new items in, so you could do your entire database that way in basically 4 clicks. You would search for or 2 clicks, unit price B from A, unit cost B from A, and you would have everything covered. Now, as we add new items to the catalog, they're going to be coming in without B. So this is where a query, and D-Tools has some pretty nifty ways to do queries, can come into play. So I've created a couple of queries where I can look up unit cost equaling 0 and unit price equaling 0. So if I were to run this query, double click on it, all the items in my catalog that have not yet been established would show up here. And then I can decide which of these, some of these are icon items and things of that nature, so I could decide which of these I want to go ahead and establish. I may want to establish unit price B on all of them, and this is an easy way then to capture. I do the same thing with unit price and capture those. So using queries is a way to quickly identify items where the B level pricing has not yet been established. Then you can go back to your price rules and again quickly set B from A for cost and price. So let's go back to our filter on origin acoustics. We'll clear this and we'll go to manufacturer origin. So once I've established my pricing on unit B or on price level B, because I do want to be able to establish, on the BlueDog side, we establish cost based on first column cost. We don't take into account discounts for quantity or a platinum level or gold level, that sort of a thing. So if you wanted to be able to apply that cost for your purchase orders, that would be a reason why you might want to push this over to the B side or to a B level. When we get into QuickBooks, the way this ties into QuickBooks is we would look at our QuickBooks settings. So, and you can get to QuickBooks settings from a number of different places, but we'll go in here. The first thing you have to do is you need to have DTools running on the same machine as you have QuickBooks, and you need to browse to where your QuickBooks file is, which we've already done. Now I'm going to say here that there are some very good video tutorials in the DTools implementation guides for showing how to make this connection and going through all the QuickBooks settings. I do not profess to be a QuickBooks expert by any stretch of the imagination. We're system designers and engineers. I've learned quite a bit from Steve First with the Bravas Group, and we've gone through creating our different category designations and things like that in collaboration with them. So I'm gonna quickly run through it. If you have questions, I can try to answer them offline to the best of my ability. But if you really want to go deep into the QuickBooks side, I can put you in touch with Steve First with the Bravas Group, and he's exceptionally good at that. So first thing we're going to do is connect the two files. The item format by default is going to be set to manufacturer and model. There's a third field if you choose to use it. What this looks like, if we come over to QuickBooks, is if you go 2 levels, then you have the manufacturer name and the model number here. If you go 3, it's actually going to go another level deep and doesn't really, it doesn't look very good. It doesn't seem to work very well. So we recommend sticking with the manufacturer and model as the default. With the items, you can choose your default item type as being either inventory, non-inventory, or service. Most of the items that you would push to QuickBooks would presumably be inventory items. By default, there's the short description is included. The sales description by default in DTools is the long description. We recommend changing that to the short description as well. You have the option to transfer the part number. And Origin is a good example of a manufacturer who has a unique part number from their model number. Digital projection would be another one. Sonance would be another one. And so we recommend that you do transfer the part number, and we maintain that part number. That's part of that's one of our managed fields. So what we'll do is if there is no unique part number, then we copy the model number. But if there is a unique part number, and kind of is especially important when you're doing your POs, we do take that from the price list and use that unique part number. So we would push that over. And then here's where you have the option of choosing which price level you want to integrate to. So we're set up for B. Obviously A is the default. And then there's one other option. There are 5 custom fields for an item in QuickBooks, and you have the option here to map these custom fields. Our best practice recommendation is that you set up custom field 1 to the category so that you can track categories within QuickBooks, and the second to manufacturer. The reason that even though the manufacturer pushes over that we assign it to a custom field has to do with the way QuickBooks does reporting. If you want the manufacturer to show up in the PO report, you actually have to add that as a field. It's just a little, I guess, nuance to how QuickBooks is set up. But you'll find when you go through the implementation guide, that DTools recommends that as well. So where that would show up in QuickBooks is if I were to open an item for editing and go over to custom fields, you'll see that in fact we populated manufacturer's origin, acoustics, and category as speakers when we created this particular item. You can define these fields, and you have up to 5 of them that you can set up. So we would do that there. So that's now in estimates. This gets to be a question of what are you going to push over? Do you want to aggregate items? Do you want to push items over independently? What do you want the names to be? There's a lot of variables here. We leave these as default with the exception of pushing the labor over by phase and subphase as an item. If you just wanted to push all labor over as one line item, you can do that. So that's every company is going to be unique in terms of how they want to set that up. And then finally, just some order statuses. Is it ordered? Is it received? Again, there's more detail on this in the QuickBooks implementation guide. So those are the settings that we would recommend. So what that looks like now is that if I want to create an item over in QuickBooks, you'll see that when you do, a unique accounting item name is going to get established. And here you'll see it's the Origin Acoustics BR10. Where that comes from in QuickBooks is right here, Origin Acoustics BR10. That's what DTools is going to call that. And now, once that's established, you have a link to synchronize from QuickBooks to DTools. And you can make changes in DTools and push them to QuickBooks, or you can make changes in QuickBooks and push them back over to DTools. So let's think about a scenario. Let's say I've created my purchase order and my cost is not $4 an item, but my actual cost for this is $3.75. So I could make that change here on this BR10 and save it. And when I come over to QuickBooks now, on this BR10, I can go into the sync function and say on these selected items, so on my BR10, I can now see that my QuickBooks value is $3.75, whereas my DTools value is $4. So if I want to, I can say, well, I want to sync from QuickBooks. And now you'll see my cost is, in fact, $3.75. So if we open this item up, now when we look at price, unit price A, the managed cost, is no longer going to match the level B, because now this is synchronized over to QuickBooks. Conversely, if I wanted to make the change here, let's say that I wanted this to be 60 points. Now this is another place where price rules are really handy. 1220 is my unit price. I have a price rule where I say I want to set my unit cost from unit price less 60%. So I could apply this rule, and now that price is, or that cost is $4.88, which reflects a 60-point margin instead of a 50-point margin. So if I save that, once again, I can go into my sync function for QuickBooks on the selected item, and it's going to say my SI value is $4.88, my QuickBooks value is $3.75. I'm going to say this is the value that I want, and I want to sync to QuickBooks. So we'll do that. And now when we come over to QuickBooks and look at this item, we'll see that the cost now reflects the $4.88 that we put in DTools. So that's how DTools and QuickBooks can push information back and forth. It's not automatic. It isn't something that's it's something that you have to initiate. So you'd want to create a process by which, if you're going to use price level B, it's going to be, in essence, new items come in that we push to your catalog. You're going to run a query to look for unit price equaling 0, and then set B from A. Run a query on unit cost equals 0, set B from A. Then you can push that to QuickBooks and get the value that you want. Going forward, so now it's created, and now you can create estimates, you can order, etc., and the two will be linked. If you what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought on that one. My apologies. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and we'll come back over to DTools. So the other aspect of pushing an item over now gets into how you're going to create these items in QuickBooks themselves. And you, depending on if it's a service item, a non-inventory item, or a inventory item, you've got to establish an asset account, a cost of goods sold account, and an income account. We have categories now set up, and let me pull this over. So this was this is the category list that we created in conjunction with the Bravas Group and Vital Management. And there are recommendations for each of the categories that we have. All of the items in our database are now set up around these 16 categories. So Steve has made recommendations as to whether these should be an income account, and if so, or an equipment account, that it's going to be sales equipment, cost of goods sold equipment, in class is inventory. And those are established across all these different categories. What that looks like when you push it over to QuickBooks. So if I now said, I want to make this D108, I want to push this D108 speaker over into my item list in QuickBooks, I can click on Create. I want to create it for this item. Say Next. So now what I've got to do is select if I want it to be inventory, non-inventory, or a service item. You'll notice that if it's service or inventory, your cost of goods sold and asset accounts go gray. You don't make a selection there. You only make the selection here. So is it going to be a sales? So if it's non-inventory, odds are, you know, we would, or Steve would recommend that you call that sales parts. If it's a service item, then it would be labor. If it's an inventory item, now these open up, and the recommended accounts would be that, so our asset account is inventory, our cost of goods sold account would be COGS equipment, our income would be cost of goods sold equipment income. So we would set it up, and it will remember these when I push items over. So I'll go ahead and create this with these fields. And now I have, in fact, an item, a QuickBooks item for this. So over here, this D108 is now established. And what we want to do now is get our price levels established. So let's go back to our price rules. And we'll do it on the selected item. And we're going to say unit cost B is set from A, and we're going to say unit price B is set from A. So now we'll get that, and we can go to QuickBooks and sync that. I want it for both of my SI values to push over, so I want to say sync to QuickBooks. And now over here in QuickBooks, we should reflect our cost and list price. So that's how we get the item established. You can do them onesie twosie, or you could grab a whole set and push the set over. So there's one other field that we maintain. This is one of the custom fields in DTools. So if we open up, let's open this item up, and you can see it actually here. But we go over to custom fields. On custom field 5, you'll see that we have merchandise, install, parts, and labor. This is was established so that we could run what's called a custom report that we built called the billing summary report. And basically what this allows you to do is establish if the item is a merchandise item, that is inventory, if it's an install part, generally would be considered non-inventory, or if it's a labor item. So on things like that would generally be considered inventory, that is, they're ordered specifically for a job, as opposed to install parts, which are considered to be ordered in bulk, and Steve takes that a step further, not only ordered in bulk, but may live in different locations. So for instance, you may have, if you think in terms of connectors, you may have bags of them in the warehouse, bags of them on a van, you have bags of them out at your client projects, and so we would categorize those as install parts. Now, if you like that concept but want to vary from what we would put, if you decided that, well, I want speaker brackets to be install parts instead of merchandise items, we leave some custom fields open for you to manage individually. So you could actually create your own inventory account on custom field 4 as an example and put that here. You don't have to use ours, but as with all the managed fields that we have, our intent is to have a fully functional working version of the database without any data input by our clients required. So we're going to manage a cost and a list price. We're going to manage this inventory account. And then we leave the options open if you want to go away from our standard, so to speak. And then you're in a situation where all you've got to do is edit the exceptions. You're not having to create it for every single item that goes into the catalog. So where this comes into play is you can see over here, I created and this is something else we can touch on briefly, is layouts. DTools gives you a set of layouts that pick from all those. Well, one more time, let's open this back up. For every one of these tabs, you'll see there's a set of fields. There's a corresponding layout in DTools. So there's a general, that set of fields, there's a description, and there's a description layout, there's a price and a price layout, accounting, specifications, IOs, etc. So if I wanted to see my general fields, I could go to the general layout. I could go to the description layout. I could go to the price layout. I can go to specs. I can go to IOs. I can look at custom fields. I can look at all the fields all together. You know, here's all those different fields and all the fields that we manage. You know, in a view for every item. You also have the ability to create custom layouts. So here's the default layout for accounting from DTools. Now it's close to what I would want to see, but I want to see a little bit more. So I actually created, if you go into manage, I created an accounting layout that has the manufacturer, has the model, has the category and subcategory, but I included unit cost, unit price, part number, short description, and custom field 5 because I want to be able to see, is this categorized as merchandise, install part, or labor. So the way that looks now is I could go into my custom layout, go to CH accounting, and it's similar to the DTools one, but I've got a little bit more information. In particular, I have this custom field where I can see, are these items set up as merchandise, install parts, or labor? Let me open up just so you can see if we were to take manufacturer, say our manufacturer cable, you'll notice that all of these cable items, because they are, you know, they fall into our category as wire and cable, and getting back to our category list, wire and cable is set up by default. This category is install parts, and so it would either be tracked or non-tracked in DTools. You can make that choice. So all of those items are install parts. When we get down back into our origin acoustic items, you'll see they switch to merchandise. So what does that look like in a project? So if we come over to a project, I could go in, add products, and I know I set up that D104 speaker. Yeah, looks like we've got I get an internet glitch. Happens in this office on occasion. All right, there it is. Okay, so, and I'm on remote desktop to boot. So, all right, so there's our speaker. I could say I want 2 of these, and I could put them in the dining room under audio video distribution. I can't help myself. I have to be organized. So I could add and close that. Now it's going to query me for my bracket. I want to include the bracket, so I'll add and close. So here are my 2 speakers with their accessorized brackets, and you can see that they are all merchandise. Now, if I were to add a pre-wire package for that pair of speakers, then I could come to my speaker pair, put that in the dining room, put this under my pre-wire audio video control system, add that, and now you'll see that these are categorized as install parts. So I have not established these install parts over in QuickBooks because I don't want to push those parts to QuickBooks. These are the parts that I actually want to push over in order. So I've established those in QuickBooks. Now, I mentioned this custom report that we have, and we're running out of time. I apologize. So I'm going to run this report, and we're going to call it for this session. Obviously, if you have questions, I'm happy to try to address those offline. But to wrap this up, we have the ability over in reports, if we go into other, and we provide this when we set you up, under uncategorized reports, we have this AD billing report. And when I run this, it's going to look to custom field 5, and it's going to organize this report as being either install parts, merchandise, or the labor is going to get broken out by phase on the back page. So if you're not maintaining true inventory in QuickBooks, you can actually use these budgets. And in fact, that's what this report was originally created for, was for folks who are doing non-inventory based accounting. You can push install parts over from this amount, merchandise over from this amount, labor from these amounts, as well as miscellaneous parts, if you have an item for that. So if we were to go over to QuickBooks, you'll see we created an install parts item, a miscellaneous parts item that we could push over to. And there's some labor items that we have created over there. So this billing summary report is you could create an estimate from basically these 3 line items: install parts, merchandise, and labor. Or, well, 4, I guess, with miscellaneous parts, wherever you want to put that. So that report exists, and it's something that you can use. What Steve is recommending as a best price is that you push over your merchandise items to your estimate, but enter the install parts as a budget and the labor as a budget, so that all you're actually ordering and all you're trying to count, so to speak, for inventory are these more significant items. So that's the custom report that we have. It sorts from custom field 5. As I said, if you wanted to customize your database away from our managed fields, but leverage that functionality, you could move this inventory account to custom field 4. You could revise that billing summary report to sort to custom field 4 instead of custom field 5. Those are easy edits to make, and do your pricing on level B, and now you're able to leverage our information from A and custom field 5 to level B and custom field 4 very easily, and set up your accounts and things, get with your accountant on that. So with all that being said, it's 10:33, so I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate your time, and we will catch you on the next call.